Hello class, I had to change the technology and adjust it a bit, but this is the second video for Module 1. I'm going to read 3 poems and I'll talk about the speaker of the poem, a persona poem, and also I'll address the imagery in these poems. The first poem I'm going to read is actually in the textbook in Mary Oliver's A Poetry Handbook. It is Before a Cashier's Window in a Department Store by James Wright. It's in 5 short sections. 1. The beautiful cashier's white face has risen once more behind a young manager's shoulder. They whisper together and stare straight into my face. I feel like grabbing a stray child or a skinny old woman and diving into a cellar, crouching under a stone bridge, praying myself sick till the troops pass. 2. Why should he care? He goes. I slump deeper. In my frayed coat I am pinned down by debt. He nods, commending my flesh to the pity of the daws of God. 3. Am I dead? And if not, why not? For she sails there, alone, looming in the heaven of the beautiful. She knows the bulldozers will scrape me up after dark behind the officers' club. Beneath her terrible blaze, my skeleton glitters out. I am the dark. I am the dark bone I was born to be. 4. Tu Fu woke shuddering on a battlefield, once in the dead of night, and made out the mangled women scouring the haggard slant eyes. The moon was up. 5. I am hungry. In 2 more days it will be spring. So this is what it feels like. James Wright can be a difficult poet in that he likes to mix not only settings, but also he'll go back to different eras and different times and places. As in this poem, it starts with the department store modern setting, and then he sort of reminisces on or compares it to something that once happened in a Chinese battlefield. That's very much a James Wright thing. But who's the speaker? If you paid attention, it certainly isn't a poet. It's not James Wright, but it's a character that James Wright created for this poem. And there are some clues. First off, the setting, before a cashier's window in a department store. The beautiful young cashier and the manager stare straight into my face. I feel like grabbing a stray child or a skinny old woman and diving into a cellar. Then it goes on, why should he care? He goes, I slump deeper in my frayed coat. I am pinned down by debt. If you read between the lines, the speaker appears to be a homeless person, who has grabbed the attention of the cashier and the manager. They're staring at him, wondering why he's there, and he feels basically, as if he should dive into a cellar. It's interesting in that the version in the textbook, there's a misprint. The version in the textbook says, I feel like grabbing a stray child or a skinny old woman and driving into a cellar, when the correct word should be diving, not driving. That's important. Poetry is all about, a very precise use of language. Oscar Wilde once said, a poet can survive anything except for a misprint. And rendering poetry exactly as a poet meant it is quite important. Okay? The second of the 3 poems that I want to read is by Sylvia Plath, and it's a poem called Mirror. Mirror. I am silver and exact. I have no preconceptions. Whatever I see, I swallow immediately, just as it is, unmisted by love or dislike. I am not cruel, only truthful. The eye of a little god, four-cornered. Most of the time I meditate on the opposite wall. It is pink with speckles. I have looked at it so long I think it is part of my heart. But it flickers. Faces in darkness separate us over and over. Now I am a lake. A woman bends over me, searching my reaches for what she really is. Then she turns to those liars, the candles or the moon. I see her back and reflect it faithfully. She rewards me with tears and an agitation of hands. I am important to her. She comes and goes. Each morning it is her face that replaces the darkness. In me she has drowned a young girl, and in me an old woman rises towards her day after day like a terrible fish. So who is the I in this? The I is the mirror. It's a persona poem in which the poet Sylvia Plath has created a character who's a mirror, and the mirror speaks about the woman who faithfully she renders, the mirror renders. There is some great figurative language in this, and next week I'll be talking about simile and metaphor. But there are some really powerful metaphors in this and a simile. The simile, basically, in which the metaphor is the mirror compares itself to a lake, and the simile is the face as a woman ages in the mirror. In me she has drowned a young girl, and in me an old woman rises towards her day after day like a terrible fish. Lovely poem for its use of figurative language, and again, the speaker in the poem, in this persona poem, is the mirror itself. All right, the last poem I'm going to read is called The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. And note how this poem is different from the others I read. From the Billy Collins poem, Introduction to Poetry, from the James Wright poem, and from the Sylvia Plath poem I just read. All right, this is The Red Wheelbarrow. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. Now what you'll notice in this is there's no I, so there's no real speaker in this poem. The poem is more descriptive, but the poem is built on images. All right, imagery, as we talked about, is a depiction in language of sensual experience. There certainly are strong images in the James Wright poem and the Sylvia Plath poem. This poem is built entirely on images. The red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. And then it begins with 4 words. So much depends upon. What depends upon this red wheelbarrow? Well, you can look at it as the farmer or the person who raises chickens needs a wheelbarrow for transporting feed, for transporting the eggs he perhaps gathers, has a variety of uses. But so much depends upon also relates to the images themselves. If these images are vivid, if they create a vivid picture in the reader's mind, then the poem is successful and the writer has created art. What depends on the red wheelbarrow? Art depends on how well these images work. And I think that's something William Carlos Williams was getting at. All right, all 4 of these poems are in a link in Module 1. Read over them yourself. Reflect on the imagery, reflect on the speaker, and we'll move on from there. Thank you much.